We have to help our kids understand what it feels like to think you have a broad vantage point and then to learn quickly that you don't. The same way I think Hiram experienced this and Oliver experienced this. They both were genuinely trying to do good, and they just had a limited vantage point because they didn't have the same eyes that Joseph has as a prophet, a seer, and revelator. And I think there's a cool way for your kids to understand this if you do this March in Place challenge. But before you begin, I would probably direct you to go back to Elder Renlund's talk from a few conferences ago, where he talked about the runways. Do you remember this one? He was teaching us how there are these personal revelation runways, and then there are those priesthood runways that there's a big distinction. So here's the story that he shares. You can go in the notes and pull up the full quote, but here's just a snippet. He said, "Years ago, I received a phone call from an individual who had been arrested for trespassing. He told me that it had been revealed to him that additional scripture was buried under the ground floor of a building he tried to enter. He claimed that once he obtained the additional scripture, he knew that he would receive the gift of translation, bring forth new scripture, and shape the doctrine and direction of the church. I told him he was mistaken, and he implored me to pray about it. I told him I would not. He became verbally abusive and ended the phone call." This is him again. I did not need to pray about this request for one simple but profound reason. Only the prophet received revelation for the church. It would be contrary to the economy of God for others to receive such revelation, which belongs on the prophet's runway. Personal revelation rightly belongs to individuals. You can receive revelation, for example, about where to live, what career path to follow, or whom to marry. Church leaders may teach doctrine and share inspired counsel, but the responsibility of these decisions rests with you. That is your revelation to receive. That is your runway. So just like we saw with the Lord in section 28, he was trying to help Oliver see, I'm not stifling you by teaching you about my clear runway over here. Your runway, Oliver, is broad. Seek revelation. Seek to do good. Just do it with wisdom, not commandment. And that's what we're going to talk about in this object lesson. You're going to create a challenge so that your kids can feel what it's like to think they can see and not see. So if you haven't seen this before, you're going to take painter's tape and put a few squares on the ground. You want to have a little bit of room between your squares so people can maneuver a little and not run into each other as much. So if you're working with a big seminary class, for example, you might just make like 5 squares around your classroom and give several batches of people a chance to try this. But if you're at home, you should be able to all play together. Just give yourself a little bit of space and make some squares. If you're short on time, you can even make X's. I don't think it matters too much what shape you're in. But the challenge is that your people who are playing are going to try and march inside that box and not veer out of it. The hitch is they're blindfolded. And what's tricky about being blindfolded is you can lose your bearings really fast. So you're going to turn on some kind of snappy marching song. The traditional one is Cotton Eye Joe, but I think you could also, if you're in primary, you could do something like Follow the Prophet. That's got a good marchy sort of sound. Or If You Believe from the youth album, that one was a good speed. Play it for a solid minute and invite people to keep their blindfold on and just march in place. Challenge them to stay inside that box. And what you'll find, inevitably, is that every one of them wanders. You'll see it if you search it on social media. If you don't have time to actually play this out, you could show your kids. Just search for March in Place Challenge, and you'll see people who look so confident that they have stayed in their square, and they pull off their blindfold, and they find out they're almost in another room because they have limited sight. That is what the scriptures are teaching us this week. Hiram and Oliver have limited sight. Part of their view is blindfolded. The mysteries of God are given to him who has keys. And that is just one man, and it is Joseph Smith Jr. And in our day, it is President Russell M. Nelson. The rest of us have some sort of limited sight. And so for us to pretend that we have our bearings perfectly without his guidance is wrong. You'll never find the happiness that you're seeking, just the way we heard in that conference talk. So I would play this a few times and let your kids both be an observer of those who are marching and be the one marching, so they get a feel for how easy it is to get off track and what a gift it is to have a prophet that course corrects us. He knows we have limited sight, as does the Lord. And so instead of letting us wander off into other horizons, he says, Maria, head to the left, or you're stepping too far forward. Get back in the box. Even though my sight is limited, his is not. And the promise is he will not lead me astray. He will keep me exactly where I need to be to find that success I'm looking for. And this ridiculous social media challenge will help you teach it.